Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I'm Riaz Ansary, and this is Sheikh Mamdouh Mohamed. We're here to discuss the importance of the Arabic language to Muslims. So, Sheikh Mamdouh, you're a teacher of the Arabic language. Maybe you can tell us something about your experiences, how you got into the field, and...
Thank you for inviting me to share what I have with you and with the audience across the globe. First, I started as a teacher of English, and this was long ago, but for whatever reason, for the wisdom from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that all of a sudden I found myself in a place that they requested me to teach Arabic to non-Arabs. And it was a real blessing from Almighty Allah. I found myself there, and something that I really love. They tried to get my experience in teaching other languages and utilize it in teaching Arabic to non-Arabs. And from that time, I started enjoying the beauty of the language, which is my native tongue. However, I didn't appreciate how valuable and how beautiful it is until I started teaching it. From that time on, I started noticing some of the mistakes that the students do, some errors, and I started collecting these, and this was the main substance for me to author some of the books and to use some of the methodologies to handle these issues. The first experience started in Imam Mohamed bin Saud Islamic University. Then after that, it was enriched by an experience, long experience in teaching Arabic language in Indonesia for 10 years. Then the last stage was teaching Arabic in different schools and universities in the United States of America for almost 17 years. This is in brief my beautiful experience, something I'm so proud of in teaching Arabic language. And since I was in Indonesia as well, I moved to another level, which is teaching the teachers of Arabic how to teach effective, or how to use effective methods in teaching Arabic. And I think this is something that we need to utilize, because if we start from the lower level, we need a lot of expertise to teach the children. So I think if we start with adults, with teachers, they can teach for example, if we teach a class full of 30 or 40 teachers, after a couple of months, they can teach 40 classes. And in this way, Arabic can spread quicker than if we start from the beginning with young children. This does not affect this. However, I think that this is the shortest way to make Arabic spread in different places. How about your experience as a student of Arabic? I'm quite sure that you know Arabic quite well, as I've seen myself.
Well, I'm still learning it.
Okay.
I don't think a non-native speaker ever stops learning. But, well, when I accepted Islam, this was in 1979, and I sat in a class with children from the age of 4 to about 12. This was in Pakistan. I accepted Islam in Pakistan. I entered a madrasa, Karachi. So the teacher, I would go to him and he would point at the letter and pronounce it. And so like that, I learned the alphabet, and then he would start with Surah Al-Fatiha. And he recited the verse, and then I would recite it after him. And then I would go and sit, and like each day after being given my number of verses, I would go and sit and memorize them. And then the next day I would go back and recite for him. If there was anything to be corrected, he would correct me, like that. So I did that for about 6 months. And during that period, I picked up a book on Teach Yourself Arabic, one of these kind of books. And I found it just really difficult.
Okay.
So just tossed it away.
The book or the language?
Well, the book and the language.
Okay.
I decided that at that point I wasn't ready for Arabic, to really study Arabic. But I had a copy of the Quran, so whatever surah I was memorizing, I had the English on one side and the Arabic on the other. So I was starting to actually pick up words, vocabulary. And so I memorized Juz Amma when I was in Pakistan, and then when I went back to America, I just kept reading Quran every day. When I got out of the madrasa after 6 months, somebody was listening to me recite. They had some people, they were reciting Surah Yasin, like it was after Fajr.
Okay.
So there was a group of people, and we were asked to each recite Surah Yasin. So everybody else finished. I was still on the first page.
Okay.
But actually, after about another 6 months of reading every day, I was reading at about the same speed as
as
an
the
average
Arabs.
person.
Oh, that's average person.
Yeah.
Which tells us Arabic is not difficult.
Yeah, you just have to take it,
Yes,
give
sir.
it time daily.
That's good.
And then I was, by that time, after a year, I went back to America. And I didn't really deal with studying Arabic grammar, but I continued to memorize Quran.
Good.
And, I'd learn words like that. So I had some kind of vocabulary. And when I'd hear the khutbah in Arabic, I'd pick out words that I knew. So that was a start. And then at one point I was just visiting somebody in an apartment building. And we bumped in, I was with an Arab. We bumped into an American Muslim. And he started talking Arabic to the Arab. And so I was really kind of astounded. I said, "Where did you pick up Arabic?" He said, "I taught myself."
Oh.
So I said, "If he can do it, I can do it."
Yeah.
So I got a copy. There's a book by a Bengali scholar called Arabic Made Easy.
Okay.
And I went through that. And there was also a book called The Vocabulary of the Quran, by a man named Penrice, a British writer. So I learned some grammar, and I kept learning vocabulary, going through the Quran, stuff like that. And then when I got a scholarship to study in Saudi Arabia. And just from what I'd been able to pick up like that on my own, I was able to skip 1 year of the language program. So it was a 2-year language program. I did it in 1 year, then went into the college.
So.
And there was one teacher who was teaching us hadith related to fiqh issues from Subul al-Salam. So he would, some of the teachers, when they gave lectures, they would dictate, they would stop and repeat and like this. He just kept going, he'd talk at normal speed. And so I was taking notes in English because there was no way to keep up by writing in Arabic. So I was sitting near the front, and he's lecturing, and he looks my way, and he stops. And he says, "What are you doing? Are you writing a letter home back to your family at home or something?" So I said, "No, I can't keep up with you by writing in Arabic. I know what you're saying, so I'm just translating it and writing it down." So he said, "Oh, okay." So those are some of my experiences.
Good to hear that. But finally you got the language, alhamdulillah.
Well, yeah, I can carry on conversation. I can read, I can translate.
That's good.
So what does the Quran have to say about the importance of Arabic language?
The first thing is that the Quran says, first, the Quran is in its original form, is in Arabic, which in itself tells you that it is very essential to learn Arabic, because you are not going to recite the Quran in your salat or outside your salat without learning Arabic. You can memorize it by repetition, and you can say it. However, it becomes very important to understand what you say and what you recite, and therefore you should know the language. The Quran itself, in many verses in the Quran, says how important Arabic is. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, "Inna anzalnahu Qur'anan Arabiyyan la'allakum ta'qilun." We send down the Quran in Arabic so that you understand it, which tells us if you try to understand Arabic in other languages, you will get some of the understanding, but you will not get the full understanding unless you perfect the language, and which is something natural. And you know that a lot of discrepancies and a lot of mistakes happen in the translation in general between any two languages in the world. And therefore, it's considered essential to learn Arabic language. And when you go back to the past, you find every scholar, every named scholar, whether he is originally an Arab scholar or a Persian scholar or a Pakistani, Indian, you can name it, all of them perfected the language in order to reach this level of knowledge. You cannot attain the whole knowledge without knowing Arabic language. And therefore, I think this gives the motivation for every Muslim who loves to understand the Quran and to teach it to others, a motivation to learn Arabic. Because this is the tool of understanding the language. This is the tool that all the scholars use in teaching this great book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is how important Arabic language is for every Muslim, no exception. And this was the norm in the previous centuries when you find Arabic spreading very quickly in all these countries. Look at Egypt, for example. 80 million people speaking Arabic now. When the companions came from Mecca and lived in Egypt, they were just few hundred or few thousand maximum. However, their impact was great. Now we have 80 million people speaking Arabic only in one country because of the effect of those few thousands of them. And this, by the way, refutes the allegation that says Arabic is a difficult language. You can see millions of people who are not Arabs are currently speaking Arabic language as their native tongue. So again, this is an important thing to believe that Arabic is not that difficult. Yeah, there are some studies that try to classify languages. One of them, some of them is the most difficult category. They put, for example, Chinese and Arabic and Russian probably on that level. Then they go to another level. Definitely there. But when we talk about the difficulty, also we have to understand everything that may look difficult for a learner. After learning it, it becomes easy. A native speaker of Arabic, his children, when they acquire the language, they would never imagine that this is difficult or not difficult. It's difficult or not difficult for the one who is learning the language, not acquiring the language. There's a difference between the two concepts, acquisition versus learning.
To see what Islam says about human rights,
kindness and care, justice for peace, human brotherhood.
The book of Allah, the glorious Quran, and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ.
Protecting humanity at large and promoting peaceful coexistence.
These are the two main sources for getting the human rights.
Dr. Ahmad Ibn Saifuddin.
Islam has come with a complete system of protecting human rights under the Sharia.
Realize the progressive Islamic insights in human rights, a Muslim perspective. Tomorrow at 7 p.m. and repeat telecast at 12 p.m. India on Peace TV.
Well, with regard to scriptures and languages, I mean, I think it's really important to realize the role that the Quran has had in keeping the Arabic language. Of course, we know that the local language in a place like Morocco or Algeria, if somebody from the Emirates hears two Algerians speaking their local language, they can't really understand what they're saying.
Yeah.
But still, when they speak standard Arabic, anyone who's an Arabic speaker throughout the world can understand that. So, and the reason that they can do so is because of the Quran.
Yes, you're absolutely right. The language of the Quran, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent down this verse, إِنَّا نَحْنُ نَزَّلْنَا الذِّكْرَ وَإِنَّا لَهُ لَحَافِظُونَ. Indeed, we sent down the Quran and we are going to protect it. By protecting the Quran, Arabic language, by default, is protected because the Quran is in Arabic. and therefore you can imagine that Arabic will live forever. However, as you just mentioned, the dialects are spreading and are used in different places in the Islamic world. And I think also the imperialists and the colonizers, especially in the Middle East, in Morocco and in Egypt, and they played a great role in encouraging the dialects to grow. However, it is doable that any country or all the Arab world, they can unite on bringing back this standard Arabic to the media, to the daily language. It's very doable. We've seen it in the BBC English or the Queen's English. It became the standard English everywhere in the United Kingdom. So it is doable, an experiment that had been done in many countries, so it can be done in Arab countries. It is doable. It needs some effort. It needs the Muslims to pay attention again to this great language.
You know, there's so many scriptures now that the language that they were written in, nobody can understand it unless they're a super specialized scholar. Like the Buddhist scriptures, they're written in a language, Pali, which nobody speaks today. And like that, there's so many scriptures that are in languages that a layman cannot understand. You have to be a super specialist to understand it. So the Quran, I mean, anybody who's gone to a couple of years of Arabic school or like that, they can understand it. So, I mean, 200 million people among the Arabs, I mean, they open it up and they can basically understand it. I mean, there are details. They may have to refer to commentary, but basically they can understand the message. It's accessible directly to the reader.
This is in itself is a proof what Almighty Allah said in the Quran, that He's going to protect the Quran, and this implies that the language is kept until now. It's still the spoken language, the 200 millions or more now, and still spoken in other countries. And still, when you go to countries like Malaysia or Indonesia or Pakistan, still find a lot of people are communicating with Arabic, not in the same levels of Arabs. However, it's still going on. And especially in the last couple of decades, there's a great need for Arabic language for business and commercial and probably political reasons. The language is spreading. And for example, in the United States by itself, there's approximately more than 200 schools and universities that teach Arabic language in their classrooms. And the number is spreading very quickly. And I think there's a positive side in this, because people, when they understand the language, they will understand the culture of the language, and thus they would be more exposed to the Quran and to Islam. And I have heard a priest saying, and this was in North Carolina, he said that we are the ones who opened these sections and departments of Middle Eastern studies. And all of a sudden we found, after some time, we had some reasons to open them, some purposes and some goals. But now everything is upside down. We found ourselves, our kids in particular, at these schools and universities are exposed to Islam, the true Islam. And I think this will have its great impact, yes, on changing the way people look at Islam because of the language when they know the language. So the language became a good tool to expose the Islamic culture to the non-Muslims, and in this way they would know the essence of Islam.
When I was going to high school, I grew up in a suburb of Washington, D.C. The languages that were available to study as a foreign language were Spanish, French, I think Latin, maybe German. There was about 3 or 4, they were all European languages. But I think now, even in high schools, there are some schools that are offering Arabic.
You're right.
I think in Fairfax County.
In Fairfax County, they have Arabic in some schools as an option for students to select from, something that was not available just 10 years ago. So there is a window of opportunities open to everybody to learn about Arabic. And alhamdulillah, we thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for His support in this matter and other matters as well.
Maybe you can give us some examples of mistaken interpretations of Quran based on translation, people that...
And this again takes us to how important the issue of learning Arabic by yourself. You would be able to go to the dictionaries and verify if the translation is correct or not. One of the most famous mistakes is even in the short surahs when, I wouldn't say even this is a mistake, but I said that this is because of the nature of the language. Sometimes it's impossible to find a word or a concept that you have an equivalent word or concept in it by one word. For example, the word ahad, قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ. One of the meanings of ahad is one. But in this context, of course, it refers to the word unique more than the word one, which tells us that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is unique in every aspect. And so there is a big difference when you translate it as one and as unique. So unique is a better word. Still, it does not carry the exact meanings of the word ahad, but it's much better than the translation of one. Another example is the word as-samad. When you ask anybody about the word as-samad, he would say self-sufficient or eternal, or would give you any translation. You say there is a sense in the translation, but it does not give you the meaning of the word as-samad, because as-samad is a concept rather than a word. And you cannot translate a whole concept in one word, unless coincidentally there's this word in other languages, which sometimes it's difficult, because Islam came with concepts that were not available in the minds of some people in the world. So the word as-samad, the exact meaning of it is the one who is needed by all his creatures, and at the same time, he needs no one of them. This concept applies only to Almighty Allah. So the word samad, if you say self-sufficient, it does not give you probably 10% of the meaning of the word as-samad. So these are some examples of telling you how important it is to learn Arabic language. And you can see even the understanding. When you understand that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is needed by all his creatures, he's needed by the sun, he's needed by the planets, he's needed by human beings, he's needed by animals, and all of them rely upon him. And he does not need any one of them. He does not rely on any one of them. Your concept about understanding Almighty Allah is amazing at that time. Yes, and this is one of the secrets and the beautiful things of Arabic language.
So maybe you can also give us some insights into some of the beauties of the language itself.
Okay. I wish that there is another one to answer this question, because I love Arabic. I am a fan of Arabic, not because I am a speaker of Arabic, because really it made me understand the Quran in a way that every day when I read the Quran, I become more keen to know more and more. So alhamdulillah. Let's talk about the physical beauty of Arabic, just the physical beauty of Arabic. If you try to see all the alphabetical letters, 28, 26, you will find all of them have something common among them. I will take the alif apart now, and I'll come back to it. All the rest of the letters have something common in them, which is the curve. All the letters have some sort of curvature in it. Among all the letters, what is unique about this? When you look at the universe around you, you will find everything in the universe is curved. The sun, the crescent, the moon, the human face. There is nothing straight 100%, only the straight path. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to save us, inshallah, and to give us the straight path. So the analogy between the letters and the creation of Allah, that's quite obvious in the natural things that we see around us, in the birds and the animals and the flowers, and it's something amazing. And one time in one presentation, I took the alphabet of Arabic and tried to put them on natural things, like the flowers. So every letter, when it was put on this background of flowers, it fitted well on one of the angles. Then I replaced them by Latin letters, and all of a sudden you find something straight, which did not match the natural thing. And by the way, even the alif, when you enlarge it, you don't find it's straight one. it has some curve in it. And this is, again, in learning, it becomes easier because anyone can draw the circle before he or she draws the square, because it needs more muscle. So it's even natural physically to write this, in addition to its beautiful way of appearance. There's something very beautiful about the appearance. I'm quite sure
I mean, I can see an English defender of English language saying, yeah, that's right. Arabic is an infantile alphabet, whereas we're more advanced.